It's quite nice. Apparently, we've got a new jingle this week as well, which is pretty cool.
Hello.
So we'll see what happens with that. But
Like a little harmonica in there, a little
oh,
solo.
this is going at the start, isn't it? I've just realised
No!
we've recorded.
Tipping Liverpool to stay up this year.
Thanks for explaining how the Premier League works then.
Enjoy that now.
No.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Football Times podcast with myself, RadioTimes.com sport editor Michael Potts, and I'm joined in the virtual studio for the third week in a row because we can't get rid of him or get anybody better. It's Mr. Jake Wilson, writer for BBC Match of the Day magazine. How are you doing, sir?
I am good, sir. Is this my hat trick? Does this mean I take the podcast ball home at the end of the day?
Not.
How are you anyway? All good? Happy this week?
We should get a podcast ball. Should be a thing.
Yeah. All the guests.
Write that down in my head.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. And we have some exciting news. Well, I might as well just start with the exciting news. You won't be listening to Jake Wilson for the entirety of this podcast.
How is that exciting?
as we have our very first guest on Football Times podcast, we have the Manchester United legend, that is Mr. Andrew Cole, or Andy Cole. I still can't quite work out which is best to call him, but he will be chatting to us very soon about Manchester United versus Brighton, and we're very excited to hear that. But for now,
excited.
We'll kickstart with... We'll start at the end, shall we? Let's go full tenet with this. Let's start at the end. We've got Monday Night Football, probably the showpiece game of the weekend. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Sky Sports Premier League, and main event, it's Liverpool versus Arsenal. Let's start with Liverpool. Imagine being one of those people who genuinely thought they were going to struggle this season.
Yeah, it's a bit silly, that, isn't it? Football doesn't change that much, in a few months, really. Good teams very rarely drop off that much, and it doesn't seem that Liverpool have dropped off at all, almost.
Absolutely. I didn't watch the full... Did you watch the full Chelsea game? I didn't catch it in the end.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts from that? I mean, I've seen all the highlights, read all the stuff, but what were your thoughts while watching it?
I think the obviously the big turning point was the Christensen sending off, which was straight out of the NFL playbook. But Liverpool seemed pretty comfortable before that. Chelsea didn't threaten their goal too much for me. And yeah, it just became a passing masterclass that second half. Thiago with the most passes ever in a 45-minute played. In the Prem, yeah, they just passed him off the park. Mane just got it in his head. I think people annoyed him the first week. Everyone was talking about Salah. His price went down on FPL, and he was like, "I've had enough of this."
Which is the true indicator of a player's form. Oh no,
11.9. 11.9. Are they having a laugh? And he went on an absolute tear. And he's best player on the park, but yeah, it was just super comfortable for him.
It's not bad, isn't it? I mean, part of the reason why Liverpool maybe, because they weren't at absolute top level sort of once. I mean, they'd already won the league, they'd already wrapped up the title, which is probably one reason. But also with Henderson being injured, he was a big part of that midfield, dictating the play. But I mean, the difference this year, they can bring on Thiago. They can bring on Thiago and just have 45 minutes strolling around looking like he was born in that Liverpool side.
He really does. He's a very, very classy player. We're currently compiling our top 50 Premier League players on Match of the Day magazine, and he has slipped in rather high.
Oh, that's major. Plays one good pass, he's suddenly the third best player, etc., or whatever, wherever he is.
Not far off, I would think. But I think that's the case for Liverpool this year. Their bench last year looked a little bit on the light side, but with the new signings, it isn't that way. Like their attacking lineup, they've got the front three that they play every game, which is phenomenal. But as a backup on the bench now, they're going to have Divock Origi, who's fine and will do a job. He's not quite the quality, but they're happy with him for now. Minamino, who's definitely grown into the English game, scored in the Community Shield. It's good. and then a 45 up to £1 million transfer of one Diogo Jota. What are 3 players to bring on? That is very impressive.
You feel like Jota is a step up on, I know it's slightly different positions, but like you're bringing off people like Shaqiri from the bench who were always destined for the bench. He was always meant to be that player who, an impact sub, who can bring off the bench, whatever. You feel like Jota could, dare I say, challenge somebody like Firmino for that spot. I know Firmino's not particularly starting in the best way. I guess he's always going to be probably under the most scrutiny of the front 3 because he's not scoring the same amount of goals. That's not his job. But you do wonder whether Jota is actually there to not just make up the numbers. You'll know him more than most, but you feel like he could probably slot into that middle role, that centre role, between Mane and Salah. Is that correct?
I think so. His direct running with the ball is maybe something that he's got over Firmino. He's got the enthusiasm and the work rate that Klopp obviously loves. And it would be very odd to spend that amount of money. This is Liverpool's most expensive attacking signing of all time, just to have him on for 15-minute cameos. Just to put it into context, this transfer, I think it's 41 it's starting at. Wolves were bought for between 30 and 45 million pounds from Fosun in 2016. So the whole of Wolves, the club, were probably less than Jota's transfer will be here. So that is a big old swig of cash that Liverpool have dropped on him. And yeah, like he could play through the middle in the way that they play. They don't swing balls into the box when they don't think they're going to have someone on the end of them. It's not like he's just going to be scrapping against Webster and Dunk for headers every week.
All right.
You would get squashed. But yeah,
Poor little
what a lineup.
Getting squashed in the middle there.
They peel him off the penalty spot.
I'm not going to mention this every week, but hear the accent and all that sort of jazz. But a fun fact: Jordan Henderson paid for basically more than the Stadium of Light. So
wow.
Yeah, we sold him. We paid off the whole stadium and the academy.
Oh, jeez! Wow.
The fee of selling Jordan Henderson for 20 million. There you go.
You got to do it. You got to, when these clubs that aren't in the top 6, you've got to sell players. Leicester have done it with Chillers again this summer. It's the smart play, and it helps teams grow.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, obviously it helps teams grow. Some teams. Moving very swiftly back on track. I've got a couple of pointless stats that may have a point to them, but I was just looking through a few team stats from the first couple of weeks. Liverpool, more dribbles per game than anyone, most successful dribbles, least fouled, and most unsuccessful dribbles. So they're pretty extreme with this, but they will run at you. They will keep on running at you. And Arsenal attempted the 3rd fewest tackles of the league so far.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to put something like this together into what is going to happen, but basically Liverpool are going to run at Arsenal a lot of times, and Arsenal are going to struggle to hold them back, do you think? Let's move on to Arsenal.
Maybe, yeah.
Is that far too basic to boil it down to? But
I think it probably is a little. Arsenal have been the team on the ball, so maybe the 3rd least tackles is because teams aren't running at them in the same way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they will have a very different challenge this week though, and it is a big test of their new back line and that ethos to see just how far they are along.
Feels a little bit like, I was going to say pick names out of the hat, but there's only going to be about 4 names in the hat to start with to get into that Arsenal team. I think at last count, I had 4 centre-backs injured. They had 2 full-backs out. David Luiz is sort of stitched together and put back in, but at the end of the day, he is David Luiz. It's interesting. It's not the defence you want to go into a game against Liverpool with.
No, but there's it's Liverpool. It's a kind of a free hit for all teams. Wolves, for us, we said it with Man City early this week. Even though you might play really well, the result is probably going to be what the result's going to be. And Arsenal are going to fancy themselves. Aubameyang obviously, phenomenal player, especially on the counter. Laka looks like he's in good form. Their front line could trouble Liverpool's shaky back line. So, as it seems like most games this season, I'd be pumping that it's whose defence is least leaky.
Yeah, screw it. Let's have a 7-5. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm in.
The Premier League's just gone nuts this year, hasn't it, already? I mean, last week was
Really?
44 goals, the record for a 20-team league season. Yeah, I mean, going back to Arsenal, Lacazette found the net again. I feel like he's always going to be that sort of player, a little spurt, sort of a couple of games to start the season, sort of tops up the meter a little bit, tops up his credit in the bank, and then is he really that player to get 20 goals, 25 goals even, somebody like that who Arsenal need on top of Aubameyang? Not totally sold, but fair play. He started the season very well, considering it looked like he might have been being shipped out. With Nketiah on the score sheet, coming through, challenging Lacazette for a starting spot, I guess. And Martinelli on the way back at some point. We don't quite know when that is, but I seem to forget about Martinelli and how good he actually was last season. It's exciting times for Arsenal's forwards. It
really is. And talking about direct running that we did with Jota, Martinelli last season, he just showed it. Teams do need those runners, the people that will take a chance and will just power at teams. It makes it uncomfortable for defenders. And I think defenders on both sides are going to be very uncomfortable for this one. I think you're
absolutely. Right. And prediction?
Yeah. I feel a bit bad. I keep going for the favourites here, but it's so hard to look past Liverpool.
What was that noise? You sounded like something off Jurassic Park. Like a velociraptor. Anyway, sorry. Prediction.
Cheers. Yeah. 2-1 Liverpool, mate. What about you? What are you saying?
Yeah, I think I fancy Liverpool. I think I fancy a 3-1 Liverpool. Arsenal with all of the defenders in there, they've improved under Arteta, and obviously they won again last night. I think it was their 7th consecutive domestic cup win, which is a good little number to reach. I don't quite fancy that defence up against Salah, Mane, and Jota could well get a place in there. Firmino could start. I don't really fancy them. Now, I'm not trying to say we don't need your expertise here, Jake, because there's a reason you're on this very important Zoom call. But we're calling some reinforcements for the next game.
See you later.
So, football times, new season, new format, new features, and as promised, the first of what will be hopefully many special guests. We're setting the bar very high here with a Man United legend, 275 games in all competitions, 121 goals, third top scorer in Premier League history. We're joined by Mr. Andy Cole. How are you doing, sir?
Hi.
Right?
Yeah, all good.
Nice to speak to you. We'll get straight down to business. Manchester United travel to face Brighton this weekend live on BT Sport 1 from 11:30. It's a 12:30 kickoff this Saturday. It can't get much worse than last week, surely, Andy. What went wrong?
I'm not going to say it was bad. Because you go through things like that in a football match, and you take nothing away from Crystal Palace. Man United weren't up to speed. Palace were, and they deservedly won the game. So, you move on. You start again this weekend against Brighton, and then you go from there.
Are you expecting a sort of Alex Ferguson-style backlash, I guess, against Brighton?
Anything's possible. The Premier League, anything's possible. And anything's possible when it comes to Manchester United. I'm looking for a more all-round performance. Even if it's away, and Brighton will be a very tough game. I'm not going to sit and say, Brighton's going to be... No, there's no easy games in the Premier League, but I'm looking for a better performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bruno Fernandez looked maybe a little bit off the pace, but we were so impressed with him at the end of last season. How sort of crucial is he to United's play, how United perform on the day?
I think they're all crucial. He's crucial. Paul Pogba's crucial. When Man United are playing well, they're playing well. And I think they proved that to the back in the last season. It's difficult starting when they did. So a week later, finishing their season real late. All those kind of things come into it. But that said, I'm looking for a more polished performance. this weekend. Because no doubt everyone's been disappointed that they played the way they did.
Absolutely. And in Martial, in Marcus Rashford, Mason Greenwood, they've got some things like this. Hope you're all right. In Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, Mason Greenwood, they've got some young sort of hotshot strikers, forwards coming through. Is there anyone you've been particularly impressed with? I know there's not.
I've been impressed by all of them. I'm going to be honest. They've all got their own strengths and weaknesses, but I do like the way that they all gel together. I like the way they play, and they all look like when on the pitch they enjoy each other's company, which is a good thing. And I think those things make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, and how do you? Well, you've alluded to that. Yeah, I guess how important is that these players look like they're having fun actually on the pitch. I mean, it looked like that, didn't it? Shackles off, attacking, flying forward.
And that's what you're supposed to do when you play football. You got to go out there and enjoy it. And I'm sitting there thinking about obviously my time playing up front, obviously with York and that. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. We'd go out there and we'd have fun. We'd have a laugh, we'd have a joke, but ultimately, it's game time. And we try to get 3 points at the end of the day.
Yeah. I loved watching Greenwood last season. I think he's such a good talent. Yeah, he's
special talent.
Such a powerful shot. I don't know, like just from a standing, just got such a good strike on him. Is there anything you've been particularly impressed by with Mason Greenwood?
I'm impressed by the way he's taken it in his stride.
Yeah.
He's got his head down. He's done what he's had to do, and long way that continues. Because I know from the outside looking in, me personally, I think he could have a massive future in the game and keep his feet on the ground and his head right. Fingers crossed he'll be okay.
Yeah, and I guess how would you have fancied your chances in this team if you'd been at your prime? Would you have slotted in nicely into that attack? Would you have liked?
I don't know. I don't know. I look at this team. It's a good team. Ultimately, all they've got to do is just keep believing in themselves.
Absolutely. And I saw you defended Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the other day, sort of wanting the critics to sort of get off his back a little bit. What was your relationship like with him during your Man United days? And do you think he will be given time to sort of get this right?
Me and Ole was always cool. I always said these people, we had a good relationship. We always used to have a laugh and joke. We always used to work on our finishing together. So I look at those things as positive things. I've had the opportunity to speak to him quite a few times since he's had the job as well. And he doesn't talk to me like I'm no longer his teammate. I mean, we talk like we're still teammates. So I think that speaks volume for Ole. I genuinely do believe he needs to be given time. If you look at where he took over, where the team, where the squad was at then, to taking over to last season, finishing fourth, getting to 3 semi-finals. Yeah, they didn't finish the do, but 3 semi-finals, that is improvement in itself.
And what can you see, I guess, from Man United from the rest of the season? Are you expecting a top 4 challenge? Are you expecting...
I am.
Europa League?
I genuinely do believe they're finishing the top 4.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, they've got 37 games to turn it around. I mean, that's a long time. It's a few months of football yet.
Do you think they might need a few more signings in there, or is that not the case? I know there's been a bit of frustration around the transfer activity.
Yeah, of course, every team needs a few more signings. But I keep saying, financially, if we talk about the signings they're talking about, it's big money. And if you've got no revenue coming in, but you've got money going out, it's not easy. It's not easy because they've got to try and find that money from somewhere. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, particularly tricky at the moment with the lockdown situation. Looks like it's going to continue without fans. Can you imagine playing in an empty Old Trafford? I think that's just a bizarre thing.
It is, and it's not nice. Mentally, it's not nice because however you look at professional football, it's like the movie industry. You're putting on a performance. And you want to perform in front of. If you've got no one to perform in front of, I think mentally that plays games with you as well. Because you're so used to it.
Absolutely. And yeah, finally, just obviously again coming back to Brighton v Man United this week. Have you seen much of Brighton this season stuff? Oh, we've got data to work with. But what do you make of Brighton?
I've watched their 2 games. I watched them against Newcastle closely last week. Very good. The right back, Lamptey
looks good.
Yeah, he looks like a real find. So I know, especially after watching the game last week, it won't be an easy game for Manchester United come the weekend. Far from it.
Yeah, what can you see happening this weekend between the two? What's your predictions and what's
Man, I've not got my crystal ball with me, But hopefully Manchester United can get a positive result and a better performance than last week.
Yeah, absolutely, and then build on that for, like you say, the rest of the season, and
there you go.
Go from there. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Andy. And
thank you.
Once again, you can watch Brighton v Man United live on BT Sport 1 from 11:30 this Saturday for a 12:30 kickoff.
Podsy, that was sick. You had Andy Cole on the pod. Well done getting that first name in the bag.
Very good. I mean, that's some enthusiasm there. I like that. I really like that. So thank you very much. Hopefully the first of many.
I'm proud of you.
We're in transfer talks, in heated discussions over our next guest. So stay tuned for that. But I'm fingers crossed we've got a good one lined up for next week. I can't say any more about that just yet, but we'll see.
Lip sealed. I like.
You tease. And yes, so moving on to the rest of the weekend, we've got some pretty big games coming up. We've got West Brom v Chelsea. That's 5:30 kickoff on Saturday on Sky Sports Premier League main event Now TV. We've also got Tottenham v Newcastle. Everybody's sort of interested in Spurs at the moment with Son and Kane's double act. Possibly a little Gareth Bale fit, not quite. Might be around, might be at the game. That's a 2:00 kickoff on Sunday. Sky Sports Premier League main event Now TV. And Manchester City Leicester is another interesting one. 4:30, so that follows straight after Tottenham Newcastle on Sky Sports. Should we move on? And should we move on to Fantasy Premier League?
That's why you bring me back.
That's
the expertise.
I need tips because I pressed the wildcard button. It's happened.
Oh,
I had a pretty good week. Actually, a very good week. It was very solid. I think it was 78 points in the end.
What are you doing?
But I just felt like my defence and a couple of the more bargain midfield players beyond the core just needed a bit of tweaking, a bit of tinkering. So I've kept my same front three. Still got Calvert-Lewin, Ings, and Jimenez. Slightly different change of tack here. So I think most people have gone for De Bruyne and Salah, De Bruyne and Fernandez, Salah, Fernandez, Mane, Salah, whatever it is. 2 big cost midfielders. I've gone with 3 sort of probably 20-goal strikers, I would say there, is what I'm going with. A little bit less in midfield, but I have slotted De Bruyne in there instead of Aubameyang.
Yeah.
Still kind of, I'm nervous about that because I still think Aubameyang could be one of the top scorers, if not the top scorer in fantasy. But De Bruyne, I can't not have De Bruyne in my team.
Yeah, I have had the same issue with you. I had Aubameyang and I wanted to get rid of him because his run of games is quite tough. Obviously, he starts at Liverpool, but doesn't get loads easier after that. And then I looked at the percentages. De Bruyne's 11.6 and he's in 35% of teams. Sterling's 11.5 and in 5% of teams. And I've chanced it with the differential. Sterling gets those hat-tricks, and I want a hat-trick with Sterling, and I want to rub it in the face of everyone in my mini-leagues.
Wow. Let it out, Jake. Let it out. This is why we're here. We're here for you to talk.
It's a competition. There's no niceties in FPL. I don't want other people to succeed.
Yeah, I've gone with... the other thing, when we're talking about City, I've gone with Foden as well. So I went for Poddens, who we chatted about the weekend. I sent a frantic message to Jake, just like, should I put in Neto or Poddens? Please tell me. Oh, Mr. Wolves. And I've gone with Poddens. It's just a cheap option. The cheapest midfielder I've got, actually. Foden's in there, and so he started. It was 7 out of 9 lockdown games he started. Now they haven't got David Silva. Mahrez is not up to scratch yet. You've got sort of... I think Sterling could start up front, possibly every other game. I think Jesus isn't a nailed-on starter. I've seen a few people going for him, but like Sterling can start through the centre. Jesus can be on the bench, and I basically can't see how Foden misses out on that team. And he scores so many goals as well. It's not just assists. So I'm feeling a bit of a De Bruyne-Foden partnership, as we want to call it, over the next few weeks. Could be very wrong. Any other hot shouts for us for game week 3?
I'm very close to pulling the wild card button myself. I think someone that may be on the podcast next week pulled the wild card lever after game week 1. Oh. So maybe you want to bring that up next week, potentially, with a potential guest there. But I'm shouting Kepa this week. It might be in the final week I ever shout Kepa, but they've just signed Mendy. But I think Kepa might have his last game for Chelsea, maybe, or his last Prem start. And it's West Brom at home. Just go out with a clean sheet, Kepa. Do it for Wilsey boy. Come on.
You know what it is? Like, we try to look like a respectable, reputable outfit, Radio Times, not known for its sport. We're trying to build a reputation here. And then you come on and you start, of every player you could possibly tip for Fantasy Premier League, you're telling me the one goalkeeper with, I don't know, crisps for wrists? Come on. His
stats, so I looked at them today because I was looking at him and Mendy.
Yeah.
There's a figure for how many goals saved, and Mendy's is in, I think he saved something like 4 goals last year. So a regular keeper would save 0. He saved 4 more than a regular goalkeeper. Yeah. Kepa's stat last season for how many goals he saved compared to a regular goalkeeper was minus 10.7.
Oh, so a regular goalkeeper would have saved 10 of the goals that went in last season.
Yeah, so maybe like Pickford might have saved 11
You realise this isn't like golf. You're not trying to sort of like get the lowest score possible here. Like, you've actually got to try and, tally up.
Well, this is it. It's all about differentials, FPL. If you pick the big money players, then you need to go for the ones that are in the low percentages as well. Or how are you going to catch players? How are you going to catch?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act.
Let me know how this goes. Okay, let me know how this goes. We're going to shout you out next week, even if whether you're here or not. We're going to shout you out, and we're going to either rinse you or hail you as some form of deity king. We'll come to that next week.
I'll take it.
Oh my goodness! It's just right. Okay, let's move on. Let's see if you've got a better eye for new signings in the Premier League. So we've seen a lot of money spent. There's a lot of chat about how much money clubs are losing, how much clubs aren't making from matchday revenue, etc. That hasn't stopped the transfer market from being a thing. Chelsea obviously just tipping over the £200 million mark, I believe it is. Interesting from Chelsea. It's a bold topic. Yeah, new signings. Who's caught your eye for good reasons, for bad reasons? Hit me up.
Well, the big one, really, that I'm very excited about, I'm not going to talk about Chelsea, even though I'm very excited about one of their players in particular, is Everton's midfield 3. So, Ancelotti has said, none of you are good enough. Gomez, Siggy, Davies, Gabamin, you never fit, mate. None of you are good enough. And they've just bought 3 midfielders to play together in the middle. They've got Decore, who I love on the ball. He's so good on the ball. Alan, who is my favourite of the lot, who seems like an absolute destroyer. And I think he's going to do an absolute job there and really push Everton close to those European spots. And obviously the marquee, the big sparkly name at the top, James. He does look good on the ball. No sprints. Doesn't want to sprint, mate. But on the ball.
For the week.
Yeah, if you have to run, you're not playing well enough.
Yeah, you've got. I love players like that who, I don't want to run, but I can pass the ball so well that I don't need to. or strikers like that, Berbatov sort of figures who don't need to run because they can just score from anywhere, from any angle, any position.
You could just jink up and down the pitch. Berbatov just jinked everywhere. Didn't do anything, but through players' legs, and then and James looks top quality if they can get him fit and keep him playing. That middle three, and then with Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin up top, and however they fancy playing it, that's tasty. I'm a bit worried that if they keep up form like this, may threaten Wolves' European comeback.
Oh man. Delusions.
How about you? Who's top to you?
Rodriguez. Only Salah made more key passes. That's what I was looking from the stats. Wow. Only Salah made more key passes than Rodriguez in the first 2 games. That lovely sweeping finish against West Brom, the left foot straight across the goalkeeper, right in the corner. But the thing that got me about Rodriguez was actually it's going to sound a bit cheesy, but it was that little hug at the end with Ancelotti. So, when a player comes to the Premier League, particularly when they're a little bit older, and they come to the Premier League for the first time, they've never played in the Premier League before, it sort of seem almost too big for the club. No disrespect to Everton, but like, you are signing one of the world's top talents a few years ago, sort of thing. I always think it's just a bit weird when those transfers come off, and it's kind of like, is this just their stepping stone? Is this their exposure to the Premier League market, so to speak? That little hug with Ancelotti, I think, speaks quite a lot, because he now looks like he's found a place where he's loved. And I think Real Madrid is quite, as we've seen with Bale, we'll chat about Bale in a moment, I'm sure. Bale just didn't feel the love from that Real Madrid, the whole club, from the fans, from the club for how many years he was there, no matter what he did. And I just think Rodriguez could have found his little home. I know it's very early to say things like this, but Everton fans will love him. Everton fans already love him. I saw them giving bottles of wine out to him. Did you see that video?
Yeah,
a bottle of unbranded wine to James Rodriguez through his car window is just what we need more of that. But I don't know. I just feel like if he's in that loving environment, in a place that really wants to have him, feels lucky to have James Rodriguez, he's just going to flourish in that environment. So yeah, big fan. A couple more players. I want to tip Grady Diangana. So he's a new signing. He's a permanent new signing. Obviously, he was on loan at West Brom last season, but he's going to count for this one. I really like the look of him. Also in that Everton game, not just for the goal. I mean, the goal was more a product of Everton just backing off halfway to Anfield. But yeah, I thought he's got this. He's got this great control about him. He's very quick. He's very, very quick. But that doesn't mean anything unless you can actually, keep the ball at your feet. And he just looked very composed, very sharp, slotted straight into the Premier League. Excited to see what he can do this season.
Definitely, he does look very good. He did a big job for them last season, and there's a lot of weight on his shoulders for this. Him and Pereira for them to stay up. And before we move on to that big name you mentioned earlier, I want to talk about fullbacks for a second, because fullbacks are great and everyone loves them now. And there's a couple that I think are going to change the game a bit. I think the first one, Bale's teammate and new teammate, Reguilon. I think he's going to do the business. Him and Doc, either side, and as wing backs there. I think he looks great. From what I saw of Sevilla in the Europa League, obviously went on to win it, knocking out Wolves. But he looks like a right player, getting some great reports around the world. And the other one, what I'm really worried about, is Leicester's fullback situation now. So they're currently playing James Justin, but he's a stand-in for probably my favourite fullback in the league, Ricardo Pereira, who I think is an absolute world beater. His direct running causes absolute mayhem. So you've got him on one side, and they're likely going to have Castagna, the new signing, on the other side. And he's already made an impact, getting assists, getting forward a lot, causing that chaos. There's some real weapons. And Wolves have done the same. These teams just below the top established. Like, we've got Martial on the left, who's already a fan favourite with the Wolves Twitter, and just dropping £28 million on a Barcelona player, Nelson Semedo. So just casually as you do as Wolves, just buying from Barcelona.
Are you a Wolves fan, mate?
Yeah, I am. Have I mentioned it on the pod yet?
I don't know. Only.
Well, I have now. If I haven't before.
Your stats are suggesting once every 30 minutes, I believe. So yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's far more than that.
Yeah, definitely is. So I think these fallbacks are so important to most teams attacking lineups now. I think they're really going to change the game in the Prem again.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought, I know he's injured, which is obviously a problem at the moment, but Kieran Tierney, so I feel a little bit sorry for him because he has had those injury problems that just stunted the beginning of his seasons and beginning of his time with Arsenal. But I just think we're going to look back at Kieran Tierney and think, slow start, but oh my word, what a player. Just given time to put those balls in, some of the crossing and some of the deliveries he was putting in. I think it was in the Europa League last year, and I think it was Martinelli who was actually picking up on them. And some of those deliveries were just pinpoint, as good as you'll get anywhere.
And for a debut season, he's got an FA Cup, he's got a Community Shield. I think he won their June Player of the Month. Like, he hasn't had the best time with injuries and stuff in that time too. He's had some little niggles and stuff. So this is just the birth of a new Arsenal legend, maybe.
Absolutely. And so I like June Player of the Month. It sounds like sort of like a chocolate teapot or something, like you're about as useful as a June Player of the Month. Like, I like that.
It's a new world, mate. It's a new world.
And moving on finally to Mr. Gareth Bale. Where do you stand on this scale of he's going to rip the Premier League a new one, he's going to tear it up, he's going to rewrite the rule books, or a bit of a waste of money, a bit of a waste of time? Where do you stand?
Going to be really boring and sit in the middle, because I think he's going to be really good, but not for a little while and not all the time. I think it would be a lot to put on his shoulders that he would come in and be the talisman that turns Spurs into a top 4 team again. But he's undeniably an elite footballer. He impacts big games. He didn't play for Real Madrid all that much, but when it came to the big crunch moments and he was on the pitch, he scored a bicycle kick from God knows how far out in the Champions League final. He's not some player that's rotted on the bench, even though he has been on the bench for far too long. He's a very, very talented player, and he's going to score well into double figures of goals for Spurs this year. But he can't do it on his own.
I'm tentative about Bale. So I think I wrote about this actually last week. Cheeky plug.
Radiotimes.com.
In those little thanks, Jake. About sort of how. Remember when Alexis Sanchez kind of down tools for half a year trying to get that move? It didn't quite go to City. Ended up going for United, and he'd sort of forgotten how to pick the tools back up again. And I was kind of thinking with Bale, I was starting to get a little bit frustrated with Bale himself. And I think had he not moved this summer, I'd have been very frustrated with him, because I think sitting on the bench and laughing away, and it just becomes very petty between Real Madrid and Spurs. And so I was getting a little bit to the end of the tether with running out of sympathy for Bale. But now seeing him, he's made that move. You just hope he can kind of find that top gear again. I think we're probably going to get a third. You can probably get up a third gear, sort of chugging around like that. But are we going to see fifth gear Bale again? And I think there's a question mark over it. But if we do, I mean, you saw Spurs last weekend. Kane through the middle as some sort of quarterback striker, pinging the balls around the corner for Son. If you throw Bale into that as well, 2 keen, willing runners. Oh my word, they're going to.
You might get 7-5s, won't you?
You might get 7-5s. Yeah, you might. It's just interesting because Kane, Bale, Son, at the absolute top of their game. is there a better front three? Ooh, I'm going to say in the Premier League. Is there a better front three in the world? Is that too knee-jerk to say? I can't.
You'd maybe only look at Bayern, wouldn't you? But
yeah.
But for names,
Bale, Kane, Son. The potential that front three has. That is instantly enough to put you in the top four, in the top three even. Obviously, there are so many question marks over what Bale can do, how he will slot in, but I'm tentative, but also getting very excited, especially after watching Spurs last week.
It's such an exciting Premier League season.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many, as you like to say, narratives going on. It's all about the narrative. And there are so many and there's so many good players, and teams are revamping and refreshing. And this is turning out to look like it could be a classic Premier League season.
Absolutely. Just like every Premier League season. I'm joking. Like an absolute scorcher. And we'll be here hopefully every week, should the Zoom quality stand up over the difficult winter months, as we're being told now. But we'll see how that goes. What's in Match of the Day magazine this week, Mr. Wilson?
Well, it is the last chance to grab our massive goals issue. So as we've spoken about some elite forwards today, we've got all the elite forwards in that mag. Everything for your kids to know about the Premier League's hottest ballers. And 3 packs of those brand new match tags on the front. So I know you're going to be getting it, Michael. I know you're going to be getting it. There's no Sunderland in there, but...
I'm gonna go to the shops. I'll do it.
I'll actually do
it this time. For all of my 0 kids that I have here. Well, thank you very much for joining.
It can be enjoyed by all ages. No, it can be enjoyed by all ages, Michael.
It's on my level, so I'm definitely up for it. I'll go and pick one up for next week, and I'll let you know how it is. Thank you very much for joining, Jake, and as always, and we look forward to seeing who for the Match of the Day team is with us next week. Mysterious. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, you can come to radiotimes.com/sport for all of your sporting previews. We've got some non-football stuff coming up. We've got the French Open in, where are we? The end of September. I had to check the date there. We've got some French Open coming up. We've got Premier League fixtures. We've got Carabao Cup fixtures. We've got a bit of everything because sport is back. And thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest. Cheers.